And with me today, I'm joined by Ashley Spence, who's a survivor, an author, and advocate who transformed her personal trauma into a mission for justice. At 19, Ashley endured a brutal home invasion and sexual assault that nearly claimed her life. The assailant remained unidentified until DNA evidence led to his capture and subsequent sentencing to nearly 138 years in prison. In 2022, Ashley founded the DNA Justice Project, a non-profit organization dedicated to educating policymakers and the public on the critical role of forensic DNA in the criminal justice system. The organization's mission encompasses advocating for the expansion of national DNA databases, promoting the utilization of forensic DNA technology, and securing meaningful funding for DNA programs worldwide. Ashley is also the author of Silent Witness: How DNA Uncovered the Truth and Empowered My Healing, a compelling memoir that intertwines her personal journey with a compassionate call to action for the use of forensic DNA technology to transform justice systems globally. So, welcome to the show, Ashley. It's an honor to have you here. And wow, such a story you have.
Thank you for having me. I am the very, very honored one. I love your podcast. I love you bringing these stories to light. I think it's so important to show that healing and survival and thriving is possible out of all things. So thank you for having me.
Oh, an absolute pleasure, Ashley. And even though I have spoken briefly about your journey, it would be great to hear it from, your own point of view and, what led you to the amazing work that you're doing today.
Thank you. Yes, I was 19 years old. I was so excited to continue my journey at college and just be free. That was kind of in my soul always. I was really excited to always get on my own. I always felt that I just wanted to spread my wings and, leave the nest. And so I went to school in Arizona State, which is a different state than I grew up in. And I went to bed one night, and I just want to preface that this is definitely a sensitive topic, but I think it's so important that we talk about these things because the more we keep it suppressed or in the darkness, the more it can breed, right? So I do want to preface that though, that it is a sensitive topic before I go into it. But yeah, you know, I always had the luxury of feeling like I was safe in my own home. And I guess I took it for granted in a way because I never in a million years thought that, I went to bed one night in my apartment at 19 and while I was asleep, an intruder came into my home and, I won't go into details on everything, but I was very brutally raped and assaulted and nearly killed. And I was forced to endure it for hours, and I never could see the face of the person. He had suffocated my face with the pillow so tightly I could not see who it was. And I was so fortunate because I survived it. I did not think that I would in the moment, and I'm here today. But he got away, and I never saw his face. I worked really hard with detectives. He threatened my life. He said, just like I was watching you, I will come back and kill you if you tell anybody. But immediately, I called 911. I called detectives and police, and I was blessed with a very incredible first responding police officer. He saved my life. And, he guided me to have a rape kit examination done. I knew nothing about that, nothing about forensics. I wasn't watching any shows about it. I don't even know if they were around. It was in 2003, right? So I didn't know what to do, but he guided me and I had evidence collected, but there were just no leads. And I worked day and night with detectives. The case was not going anywhere. So, I dropped out of school. I couldn't take it anymore. Speaking of from victim, I was Ashley, and then all of a sudden it was stripped from me, and I was all over the news, and I was the victim, and I tried to go to school, but I had bruises all over me, and everyone was staring at me, and then I was in sheer panic, like, is he behind me in class? I didn't have the strength. So I dropped out, and then I moved to California to a city there called Newport Beach before going home, and I'll tie this up quickly, but it was 7 years later, I get a shocking phone call from detectives that there was a DNA match, and it was wild. And I moved to this city called Newport Beach to try to escape this man. So it's a neighboring state. Arizona was here and then California. And ironically, I moved to the very city that he lived. So when he was apprehended for an unrelated offense, they found him 1 block on this tiny beach town. I lived on 40th Street all those years. He was arrested on 41st Street trying to break into a home where these three young women lived. I mean, it makes no sense, right? But They ended up arresting him. California collects DNA for all felony arrests, and they're one of 19 states in the US that does that. So they swabbed his cheek, and it hit my case and multiple others. He's now in prison for nearly 138 years. But um, I just began to study forensic DNA because in the States, it's not the same law everywhere. And as the law stands in Arizona, my rapist would still be free. They would not have swabbed his cheek for that arrest. So he would still be out there. And now I advocate for change and justice.
Amazing. Such a story that is. Oh, goodness. Wow. And plus 19, very young to be experiencing such a brutal attack. So what happened after that? I mean, did you seek healing, counseling?
Oh my God. I didn't talk about it for 13 years, if you can believe this. So I know it's crazy. My own brother, who's like my best friend, he was 6 years younger than me. I didn't even tell him. I just said that, someone had broken into my home and stole something because there's this like, you just feel like you're stripping assaults and violent crime. They tear apart communities. They tear apart the fabric that inherently we should have to feel safe in our homes. But it doesn't just impact the victims, it impacts every person. It impacted my roommate. Everyone that went to school with me was in fear because this person was in the loose, my friends. And so when I moved to California, I said, I am not telling anybody. I'm never going to have closure. So I just have to move on, and I'm just going to be Ashley. I don't want to be this victim anymore. I hate it. And so I thought that was like the great way to process pain, and it was actually like the worst because what happened was like, I was just suppressing. I wouldn't even tell a therapist. I went to see a therapist just so I could get a Xanax prescription, but I lied and said I was afraid to fly even though I was not flying anywhere, but I didn't want to say what had happened to even a therapist. That's crazy, and that shows like the shame, that the stigmas that we still need to work to shatter because I felt so disgusted with myself and uncomfortable. I couldn't even tell a therapist, I was lying, and so I was self-medicating, and I went on a downward spiral, really scary. And finally, I found the practice of yoga, which it's not for everyone, but it ended up saving my life. And from yoga, I got really clear, and I went to community college. Then I graduated college. I had a job, all these things that felt unattainable. But I've done a lot of therapy. I've done every healing modality in the book. You can actually guarantee that I've done it.
Amazing. Hence why you're here now to tell the story without the shame, without the guilt and the self-blame. But yeah, I just think that's incredible. Wow. And so it was only recently that they started to obviously, do the DNA analysis. I thought it's been going on for years now, hasn't it? Decades.
So in the UK, y'all are very ahead of us in that as far as that goes. It's federal law. We have to go state to state.
Oh,
So
okay.
19 states collect for all felony arrests in the United States out of 50. So right now I'm in the middle of session. Last week I had to take two red eyes. Because you get notices for bill hearings, right? The day before or something. And I had to go from Texas to Oregon, which is a red eye flight overnight, Monday night. And then I had to testify, drive to the Capitol and testify there Tuesday. Then I had to drive to the airport and take another red eye that night across the other side of the country to Georgia, which is totally opposite overnight. And then I had to go to a hotel room, freshen up, take an hour power nap, and then go testify in Georgia. And both the bills are up for votes this week. So it's very stressful because I know that my case is a testament. My perpetrator would still be out there. And his sister came to trial, his whole family, and she begged the judge to never let her own brother see the light of day again. She said, she became a detective because she had to grow up with him as a brother, and they're certain he's murdered people. He wasn't getting caught for that. He was getting caught for lower level felonies. He was getting caught for burglary, for voyeurism. He was in and out of jail, but they never swabbed his DNA cheek swab because they never had to. So you realize a lot of these violent predators, they're not getting caught for the really bad things. They are getting caught for lower level felonies. That is why we have to get them early. There's many cases of preventable murders and homicides and also exonerations that have happened through this. The right perpetrator, the true perpetrator. DNA evidence is crucial in catching the right perpetrators, therefore, freeing the wrongfully convicted. So it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, 100%. Wow. And obviously, do you find that there's a trend? Because I suppose you do actually get to see all of the perpetrators. And do you find there's a trend with mental health issues? The fact that they were probably abusers, children, so they grew up to be abusers. So,
It took me a long time to have that sort of compassionate lens. I have to be honest with you, but things shifted in me and I do some work in like the jails here and I train staff on collecting DNA, but oh, the most heartbreaking thing was I saw like these women that were in the prison and I'm leaving, and I'm dressed in my business work and they had just come out of their like lunch and they were just like, your clothes are so nice. You have such a great smile. I get to my car and I just start sobbing because I'm like, what have these people been through in their life? I absolutely think the majority of people have had some horrible things that they've never been able to process or support, which has gotten in there. I think there are also some bad eggs that's a different story, but the majority of it, it's like, how do we stop? We have to stop it at the source. We can do all these things on what we do if you are raped, but like we have to really have the conversation more of how do we support, even like young children that maybe are in abusive homes. We have no idea, but
mm,
something's happening along the way that their mental health is not being tended to, and they're probably victims themselves.
true. Yeah. I mean, everybody's going on about adolescence at the moment on Netflix, and that's,
Right. That was so heartbreaking.
I know. But even with
Oh,
there was no trauma that that we could see. It was purely what was happening online. So it was actually online
yep.
bullying and the influences there. So I just feel there's just so much that we have to deal with, with our children. Because obviously you're a mom as well, aren't you? So
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's nerve-wracking, but staying connected with them, like it's not, but not everyone has that, like we're very lucky that we do and that we give that, but not that's not everyone's situation, sadly.
true, true, yeah. Oh wow. And so how about your organization then, the DNA Justice Project? So how did that all come about? And like, did you have to go back to uni or something?
Oh, no, it's actually a very crazy story. Serendipitous, I would say. I had yoga studios here actually. So I didn't tell people for years. Yoga was like this amazing, beautiful healing modality for me to get me reconnected to my body, like self-care. Like I cared about my body again. And I felt like I remember there's this like warrior pose and my feet were rooted into the ground and my arms are extended out. And I felt like I was sweating and I felt this like surge of power radiate from the inside of me. And it was so wild because this is a power that, I was I thought I was damaged and destroyed and I felt like I would never be whole again. And then I was like, "Whoa, maybe he didn't take this. This is so cool. Like I feel that power." And then I started to realize like how beautiful, like nobody, and I think this is so important for survivors because I didn't grow up at a time when anyone talked about this. And so I didn't know like if healing is possible in any realm, healing your sensuality, your self-love, but like it is possible, and it just sparked this in me that I wanted to really continue digging deep. And healing is so hard, but like it's so beautiful. And like you no one can touch like that divine, like I call it goddess, not to be wooey, but like that divine light and energy, like that is untouchable. And you're
Yeah.
not damaged and you will heal, like you really will. You're going to be okay, and you have to put the work in. But it's really powerful. So I had yoga studios and I thought, I'm never telling anyone what happened to me, but if I can give one person on their journey, whatever their story is, because we all have our stories, a safe place to where they can come in. We know their names. We can carry them if they have a loss of a family member, whatever it is. Like their struggles, they know they can come into Wanderlust. That was the name, and they can just find their own journey of healing. And to me, that I thought that was going to be it, and that was just going to be my gift. And I would never talk about this part of my life, but life often does. It had a different plan. So I began testifying in legislation on the side in my home state of Texas. And I met this woman. Her name was Ann Sepich, and her daughter was brutally raped and murdered in 2003 as a grad student. And it was a horrible story. But her and her family fought for 15 years for
Wow.
these forensic DNA laws. It's actually called Katie's Law in New Mexico. And she had seen me at Texas. We worked together. Just I helped support her efforts and testify there. I had no clue what I was doing, but she decided to retire. And I remember she called me and she was like, Ashley, I need to drive down and talk to you. And New Mexico to Texas, I mean, that's a good drive. That's like 12 hours. Okay. And so I was like, wow, just to take me to dinner, like this, okay. And ironically, like 2 months before, I had been getting these nudges to sell my yoga studio. And people were like, why? You've now built it up to be thriving. It's one of the biggest studios in Texas. Like, and I
Mm.
didn't know why, but I took the leap and it was so scary. And I had like a week before been crying because I'm like, okay, I did it. Now what am I supposed to do? Like talking to myself, pray, like what, show me the way. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm living off my savings. I'm a single mom. Like this on paper, this makes no sense that I would do this. No one understood. And she drove down and she just said, I have spent 15 years of my life, my husband with his health stuff. Like, I want to now just enjoy the time with my family. I don't want to stop doing this when I'm getting older. The travel really wears on me. And I've met people all over the world. And I feel like you're the person to carry this work on. But I know you have two yoga studios and you have kids. And then I'm just like, start crying. And I'm like, wait, I just sold my yoga studios and I had no idea why. And so now I have the space because otherwise I wouldn't have had the space to do it. So, um, she trained me for a year and then she just let me fly, and so now she's retired, but she's like a second mom to me, so we still talk like every week. I update her on what's going on and I go to her with questions or just
That's
love. So it's a beautiful, out of tragedy, it's like a beautiful story.
Oh wow. I think that is phenomenal. And it just feels like again, the universe knows, what plans it has for us. And
Right.
we have to surrender and just, not force any situation. And like you said, you'd already sold your yoga studio, so it's just
And I
crazy.
didn't know why, it's so wild, but you look at that and sometimes we do, and I think it's a fine line because some people get very upset if you say everything happens for a reason, because I didn't think that. For a long time I was in my victim, I was in this mentality of I never want to forgive. I was so angry, I felt like the victim. I was sad, I was devastated, underneath all that armor, but the grief was just too much for me to even process, so I suppressed it. But and when people say everything happens for a reason, I lost my faith in God, universe, whatever you call it. I did very, very much for a
Mm,
long time. And then slowly, little synchronicities. And then I found forgiveness, almost 14 years after my attack to my perpetrator, which I never thought was possible. And it opened up this beautiful, now I'm more connected ever to my spirituality. And I would not be able to do this work without that. And there's like this Wayne Dyer quote that I love, that because I'm on the road a lot alone and I'm going into capitals and I'm having to share my story like an elevator pitch, in 2 minutes, something. So, and then also give information on the database. And, a lot of times I'm either met with coldness or, the bill dies and you pour your heart and soul into it and you know that it's something that's going to save lives and you've been so vulnerable. And, I've had my heart crushed, but there's a Wayne Dyer quote that always gets me through it. It's like, if you knew who walked beside you on the path you chose, you would never experience fear or doubt again.
true.
I
Yeah.
love that, because it makes me feel it. Maybe I don't know. It just makes me feel not alone. And I think what you're saying, we have to look harder for the blessings, but there are blessings that are woven even through the heartache.
So true. Yeah, so true. And yeah, I fully agree with that. When we're stuck in our comfort zones and, we don't really take any risks, then yeah, you're just going to lead a very substandard life, aren't you? Like a normal life. And it depends if you're happy that way or whether, you do want more, whether you do want to experience like fulfillment and if you are more ambitious, then we have to take risks. It's a given.
Absolutely.
We have to
Absolutely.
come out of our comfort zones. Yeah. Wow. And so, okay, so now, so what are the actual primary goals and initiatives of the DNA Justice project?
So I have 6 different states I'm working on legislation to expand our DNA collection policies, similar to how my perpetrator was caught. Again, 19 out of 50 states do it. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Mm,
I also advocate for advancements in DNA technology. So we have this machine called Rapid DNA. Right now, we're looking at issues of collection. We're missing collections, backlogs. There is a technology that you can actually use in 90 minutes. You can either identify or eliminate suspects in 90 minutes. Right now, this process takes weeks, months, sometimes years. And so you look at how we have advanced in technology. I mean, we're able to connect like this over, you know what I mean? It's
uh,
every area of our life we've advanced in technology. Why is the criminal justice system archaic? Like,
uh,
it's just
Mm,
crazy.
it is
It's one area
crazy.
that we need to be. And you think about it not just from identifying and getting people off the streets, these violent predators, but you can also really quickly eliminate someone. They don't have to spend weeks, months being wrongfully accused, maybe years. I have a friend who spent 18 and a half years in prison for rape that he never committed, simply off of photo ID. They never tested the DNA. Finally, the Connecticut Innocence Project took it up because someone was in prison with him and said, I know for certain Mr. Tillman did not do this.
Mm.
And please take this case up. And they did. And he was exonerated, but 18 and a half years. We have a tool that you can do 90 minutes, 90 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's phenomenal. And you're right. Because I feel like when you do go to the police station, it's all very old, everything, and it's all handwritten notes.
Isn't that
What's going on?
exciting? We really need you to catch up. We need this to be more streamlined and efficient.
Yeah, that is actually really true. Uh,
Crazy.
I know. And so, can you discuss like the kind of main challenges and misconceptions surrounding forensic DNA technology?
It's very challenging. You have it's complex. I don't know if you're familiar with forensic genetic genealogy. So it's like ancestry.com or 23andMe. So you identify through family members,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Totally different than what we're talking about here. So people get very upset. They're like, well, so my brother is going to have his DNA and then I'm going to get caught. I'm like, but that's not what actually goes in. I'm not going to bore you or your listeners, but it's a very good system. It doesn't have any coding information, what goes into our national DNA databases. It was picked by genetic scientists. Our DNA is made up of 3 billion markers. So that makes up all of us. They only pick 20 to 24 out of 3 billion. So it doesn't say I'm Lebanese, if I'm predisposed to any genetic diseases, it doesn't have your name, but people are very concerned about the privacy. They think that people will see your DNA profile. If it's in the database, it's not public record. You're not precluded from getting a job, but your arrest record, obviously, here it's public, but your DNA is not, and so you have to be able to have your DNA expunged and destroyed if you're found not guilty completely. There are audits, heavy fines, and jail times if that's not followed through with. So, educating people on how the database works, that it's a protected system. The Supreme Court ruled it is comparable to fingerprinting. So they're saying it's just like it's an advanced way of fingerprinting. It's more accurate though. And
Mm.
then you have people that say innocent until proven guilty. And I can tell you, I 100% believe that. And this is how we can actually differentiate the innocent versus the guilty. This is the science. This is the truth. I thought, as a 19-year-old, your brain's not even fully developed, right? So going through this, there were weird things that had happened that night. And I had been at school for only about a week and a half. And my roommate had a lot of guy friends, so people were very familiar with, the layout of our apartment, probably more so when I look back on it than I was comfortable with. And there was these two guys that came over that were her friends, and they watched like this like horrible Ted Bundy. I don't know, it was like some sick perpetrator, whatever. So I was already irked out. I couldn't sleep very well that night. And then one of the guys ended up calling my apartment the night of my attack at 3 a.m. And I was attacked right after that. So in my head, I couldn't see him. I'm like, it 100% is this guy. And I had kind of had the heebie jeebies from him. Um, I was certain, 100% certain it was this guy. Okay. So the detectives collected DNA voluntarily from over 50 people. He was one of the last because I had to call him and accuse him and they were recording me. And
Wow.
um, he was one of the last to voluntarily do it. He finally did it. It took like weeks to get it back. So this whole time in my head, still, this is the guy. The DNA evidence comes back and it wasn't him. And I was shook. Because in my head, but had we not had that process, I mean, who's to say that he wouldn't have been booked in jail and then like been serving time for something? Like it's scary.
That is
My
scary.
brain was certain until the DNA evidence came back and it was like, it's absolutely not this guy. Crazy.
Wow. Goodness. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And how
Imagine that.
horrible to put someone wrong. Like, I don't know if I could have, I always feared that just as much as like what I had been through. I don't ever want the wrong person to be in there. It's just crazy. But DNA they proved in trial it was 38 trillion times more likely this guy. He had a shed behind his home when he was arrested full of women's underwear and like ID cards from all over the world. He traveled for the Olympics. He took odd jobs. So he had collected over 300 IDs in underwear and had it hidden in his shed. He was just a very crazy, violent perpetrator. And I sadly wasn't the first or the last, but now he can't harm anybody again. So I fight for that. I'm a mom now, you know that. It's just like it becomes bigger than you. You do it for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh wow, I love that. Yeah. Yeah, and when I was at school, I was actually with Amnesty International, so we were actually, helping release innocent people from
Oh,
prison,
wonderful.
by writing letters to the government.
Oh, thank
But
you.
oh no, but I remember that, and just, we used to have actual the victims, well, yeah, the ones who were wrongly accused, they used to come and actually do talks as well. And I was just fascinated,
Um,
thinking, wow, they spent all that time in prison and that they
Imagine.
shouldn't have. And where's the justice behind that? Just
And
so
their voices just get lost. It's just so heartbreaking. I fight equally, equally as hard for them because I can't imagine being victimized like that. I cannot.
no, me neither. Oh my goodness. Wow. It would be like you'd probably just want to end your life because you just think, well, if you're being wrongly accused for such horrific crimes, then what chance have you got for survival anyway in life?
Right. And you're
Mm,
trapped. It's just, oh, it's heartbreaking. It shouldn't happen. So that's why we need, we have to keep maximizing all these incredible tools to ensure that that does not happen. We have to fight for it. And, you know, I, I wish everyone, it seems like a no-brainer. And I think people like listeners, all like people think we already do this stuff, and it's just, it's
mm,
wild to me how politics gets involved of what's really good,
yeah,
it's really just. This is very just and good.
yeah, yeah, exactly. This is important. Yeah. So let's talk about your memoir, Silent Witness. So, what motivated you to write this first of all, and what message do you hope readers take away from it?
So I had felt for a long time, I was like, oh, there's a book, but um it just for a long time didn't feel ready. And initially, like kind of quick after my assault, someone approached me, about helping me write it, but we started to go down the process and the story was just so dark, and I was like, this isn't the story I want to put out into the world. This is not, it's part of it. I have to obviously highlight the darkness, but that's not the message. And so fast forward like 10 years, I start writing it. I don't know if you know who Gabby Bernstein is, but I follow. So she had in 2020, when everything shut down, she did this online write your book masterclass or something. And so I took that and it helped me really get clear on outlining everything. And, she helped with like the core messaging. Fast forward, I feel like now I'm so proud that I waited because in my opinion, it's everything I wanted it to be. It's a shorter read, which is good, I think, for the readers, especially with the memoir. You can get through it. But there's not only the darkness, but there's the hope and there's a heartache. And it's been so liberating to
Yeah.
just be authentic, like, and to own even where I made mistake, where I've being so I want to say this. I think like when you are in victim mode, and I have compassion for that, I was in that, but like you don't realize the people you're hurting along the way. If you're not dealing with your stuff, like then you're just spewing stuff on others because the pain is so deep and you don't know how to process it. And I am so grateful that I had family and I had my roommate who moved with me from Arizona, and just bless her because I caused so much chaos for a long time, with all my drinking and not resolving it, and the pain that you unintentionally can inflict when you live on that. It's heartbreaking, and having compassion for myself has been a journey, once I've gotten through that, to be like, but it was beautiful. I got to go visit her in California and I just cried and I'm like, I'm so sorry for what I have done, unintentionally. And it was so beautiful that she could hold space for that. But it was really important to me because we also have to own our stuff. Like, just because I went through that I don't mean this cold, but doesn't give you an excuse to stay in it forever and cause pain. You know what I mean? So like we have to be brave enough to face that and to heal it. And so I wrote this book, and before I sent it out, I just said a little prayer to the universe, like I hope whoever needs this message, like I hope it lands in their hands and it touches their heart and it inspires them to see, like, not only can you heal through the depths of hell. I was in the depths of hell and I write about that, but you can not just survive and live like a life of survival, but you can thrive, and it's really freaking hard. But there
Mm.
was this Greek goddess who I have this like tendency to go through like midlife crisis and get weird tattoos. So I was looking at a tattoo and I wanted to get this like big goddess on my arm, like sleeve in 2020. Because the journey of healing is, it's like not linear, it's like up and down. So I was in a rock bottom again. And I'm really glad I didn't get the tattoo, but I wanted to cover like my entire arm with a goddess. And I'm like, I'm just gonna get it. It's gonna be so great. I'm gonna find one. So I was like Googling like goddesses, and I came across the most badass goddess, and her name, it was like Akeso. It's Akeso. And she was the goddess of the journey of healing, not the cure.
Wow.
And I just loved that because I'm like, man, that's all of us. Healing is so hard and it's messy, but how cool to own it and to be like, look, this is it. This is me. And it's kind of been that freeing, like, this is who I am. I don't have anything to hide anymore. It's not the Instagram filter. This is my real life. And it's been messy. It's been freaking hard. And it's also beautiful. And I'm grateful for it all. And it's powerful to have people in return share their stories with you and connect with you and write into me like the part that really touched them because they lived through something in a different way like that, or they felt those emotions and they're inspired to continue their journey of healing and seeing that it's possible. Like that is what to me is so, that was the whole point. It's not about being a bestseller. It's about finding the people that need that message. And it seems to be happening right now. So I'm so grateful for that. And I'm grateful for your platform to
Yeah,
share this as well here, because that's just my hope with it.
that's amazing. Oh, wow. And that's really touching. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I love that, the goddess.
Great.
Yeah,
Messy. I'm like, that's
yeah.
so perfect.
Beautiful. I love that.
And I'm really glad I didn't get the tattoo at that moment. I don't know about that one. The other ones are delicate and
Yeah.
tiny. That would have
Yeah.
been a lot.
I was going to say, you can still get it, just make it little.
Make
Yeah.
it small. It didn't need
Yeah.
to be, I could wrap it all over, but
Amazing. Yeah. So, and what kind of significant legislative successes has the DNA Justice Project contributed to so far?
So in Texas, my home state, we got the law, we became the 19th state here to collect DNA for all felony arrests. How my perpetrator was caught just 2 years ago. I
Wow.
got to take my children, who at the time were like 8 and 9, to the Senate chamber. So where we do all the legislative work, and they got to hear the bill be read.
Yeah.
And I just they don't. My son now knows what happened. He was asking me. That's a whole different podcast. That's a whole different discussion. He's a
Okay.
beautiful soul. It's really a lot, and again, as we talked about, wanting to protect the safety and security of our children, they deserve that, but also teaching them hard things happen. They know mommy was a victim of a crime. They know that I don't just leave them, on a whim to fly across the country because it's fun and I want to. I leave them because I'm trying to protect people, and they're just so cool. They have like become the biggest champions and the biggest supporters. And I got to take them up there, and they got to hear the bill be read, and they got to hear the bill be passed, and teaching them that we can create hope from the hardest of situations. And this last year, we closed from this legislation alone 1,005 cases. We solved 1,005 cases through this. So the lives that we're saving, the innocent that we are making sure aren't in prison, and the crimes that we're preventing. And in Georgia, I have a bill going there right now that I've been working with an incredible senator on, and they surprised me and amended it, and they called it the Ashley Spence Act. And then so of course I start crying because I don't do it for the accolades. I don't do it for that, but it was so touching because this is the hardest work I've ever done. It makes me emotional because I'm not doing it because it's easy, or it's actually the hardest thing in the world, but I'm doing it because it's what's right. And I feel like I have this story that can make a change, but it doesn't make it easy. So, the wins, I've had so many losses in this, so many bills die, so many people not maybe be the kindest, so much hard work that felt like lost, where I didn't want to get out of bed for days because I was just heartbroken. So when you get those wins or those like touching moments, it's the fuel I need to keep going. And I've had a great support of people online too, just like keep going. And they don't realize when I'm exhausted, I'm by myself, I'm not staying in like five-star hotels. I'm a nonprofit, so it's not like the glamorous travel life most of the time. And I get a little message on social media from maybe a stranger or someone that's watching it, just like, wow, keep going. And I'll just cry and be like, you have no idea how much I needed that. Thank you. Thank you. Like it makes me feel not so alone. So I'm grateful for all of that support. It truly keeps me going.
That, oh wow, that is amazing. That is amazing, honestly. You're just living your life's purpose. And for that, I just feel that, that's something which a lot of people don't even get to do. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. The silver lining, the silver
Yeah.
lining. And then
Abs-
you see 1,005 cases. I mean, those numbers were just remarkable. And I think if we didn't have that law, the people, I work with victims all over. Some have been waiting for justice for 40, 50 years, not giving up. And I tell them this is the hope. There are people fighting for it. We have advancements in DNA, we have advancements in DNA technology. We have to just keep advocating for it. Like there's hope. There's hope.
There is hope, yeah. And so, what steps can individuals take to support policies that enhance the use of forensic DNA in solving crimes?
Yes, well, I would love, DNA Justice Project. Everything's grassroots. I built my own website on my own. Like right now I'm wearing all the hats. I'm hoping to secure some more grant funding so that I can build it. But right now, every follow matters. That seems little, but as you know, like the connection, just the support, building awareness. I do write on there like different, initiatives I'm working on and how people can support and who they can contact. And I just, staying connected in that way. And I do a lot of education on there too, on just like different DNA stuff. And then I post just different DNA news stories if people are interested in that. But just kind of being educated on it and staying aware and giving me a follow because I really want to get to 1,000 followers on my DNA Justice. It
Oh,
sounds little.
yeah.
I'm like, but listen, it takes time. It all takes time. And I'm very close now, but like just building that awareness and that support, I have big dreams for it to be even bigger and bigger one day, and I've been fortunate. I was in Kenya for a DNA for Africa conference 2 years ago. And so I've been connected with people all over the world in this work. And I want to continue to band together because although, you know, where we live might be different, the impact is pretty similar, like we're further along, I think, where we both live than a lot of places, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And I mean, I just feel like we're stronger in numbers, we really are.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And so, what's the goals then for the DNA Justice Project?
It's so interesting because I was thinking that I want to expand this. My goal is to get, to a point where I have staff. I have multiple people working with me on this in different fields. And I have dreams of not just the forensic DNA, but I love like my forensic nurse was incredible. I had a great experience with my law enforcement officer. All these trainings, I want every victim to have that opportunity, no matter what. We can't control the outcome and who actually gets the justice or not, but we can fight for it. But we can control how people are treated immediately after their attack. We can control the education that they know that there are places to go, that they are safe, that they can start their healing journey, to have forensic examinations done. People don't know this stuff. And we also have to use funds to train people because we're having a lot of bad situations where people are going vulnerably into either clinics or they're met with law enforcement that doesn't believe them, or they're going into hospitals and the staff is not trained in trauma, and it can make for a horrific experience. So I don't think people are trying to be bad. I just don't think they know. And so educating, increasing that scale, and we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, that's really where my passion is.
Beautiful. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I can see it really, rolling out to communities and maybe even at schools.
Universities.
Mm,
I'm very, I've been thinking that because that's where I mean, I was 19 and I can connect to people, and sadly the amount of assaults that happen on our in our universities, we don't even know the right numbers. It's very high and it's very, people, I want to start to break that down, like literally break it down and rebuild. And that part to me is very important. Especially at just such a young age. When you think about it, I'm now 41, 19. There was a while that I felt like some grief because from 19 through my till I was 30 something, I was just a wreck, and it took those years in a way, and I don't want I want people now, and now as a mom, it's like I'm already starting to get anxious, and I'm like I got to be strong for my daughter, and I have to I have to let her be a little free. Like I have to, do you know what I mean? It's like this very complex thing, but I want to fight like hell until she gets to that age to know that we are having these conversations and, we are trying to break down the root cause of why this is perpetuating and stopping that.
Yeah, and I feel the same, with what I'm doing around trauma and around like toxic relationships. I just want, yeah, I want the awareness to increase so that, people are a lot more ex they know that they can see the signs earlier to eventually, prevent it and to have like a global impact. I suppose, similar to you, because it's again, yours is all trauma related as well. When people are victims of crime, then it can really impact their lives. So we want to be fighting for justice. So yeah, I
What you
am.
do is so important. I'm so grateful. What you do is so important. So keep going.
Oh,
Keep
thank
going.
you. Thank you so much. So where can my listeners find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. It's Ashley E. Spence. And then you can find my book online too, ashleyespence.com, and it has kind of all the different outlets. And I would love to be connected. And yeah, I have websites, but it's just too, I'm trying to streamline. Again, I'm doing everything on my own and I'm like, okay, I gotta condense. Gotta condense. One thing at a time though. I'm in the middle of session. I can't worry about too much. So
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. Oh, I think you're doing amazingly and very inspirational and keep going. That's all I can say.
what an honor. I'm so grateful to be connected to you. And thank you for allowing me to be on your platform. I am so appreciative.
Oh no, pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much for coming on. And it's been an absolute joy talking with you and to really cover some insightful topics and very important topics as well. And so if anybody has any questions about this episode or about the DNA Justice Project, then please do reach out to Ashley. I am sure she'd be honored to hear from you and give her a follow, guys. Come on. That's beautiful. But yeah, that's all we have time for today, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show. And again, Ashley, it's so lovely to have you on, and I look forward to keeping in contact with you. And until the next episode, take care, my friends.